Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Fell Roost faction. This was the new faction that was added last Friday for Blighted Lands. I just want to go over some teams for it, as well as just general strategy and things that basically happened as of this faction coming into the game. Of course, you can still be using your daily delves on it, and this is one of the kingdoms that is a little bit easier to do pure faction 500 on, meaning that you don't necessarily need to have potion effects or wait for a Tuesday event for it to come back around to actually be able to go and complete out the faction. But anyways, one of the first most noteworthy things to mention about it is related to the kingdom itself. Blighted Lands is a magic-based kingdom. If we go over to its kingdom info page, it does have, actually not kingdom info page, if we go over to this one, it is indeed a magic related kingdom, so end up getting it to power level 5 or 10 will end up giving you a permanent +1 magic bonus. This is now substantially easier to get to power level 5 if you haven't already done it, due to the fact that the legend that you would need in order to go get 5, as well as a few more troops to upgrade, will be easily obtainable by opening portals for the new faction. Additionally, if you have the mythic from the faction, getting to 10 will also be quite a bit easier, since you'll have more easy to obtain and upgrade troops that you'll be able to use that count towards Blighted Lands in order to fill the requirement for power level 10. It can also end up reaching a total of 17 right now, but of course 5 and 10 being the two most relevant categories that it ends up reaching as a result of it. The other main thing to mention is you pretty much never want to explore in Blighted Lands now. Blighted Lands now has a very high amount of things that can be annoying, between various things that have 25% revive, but mostly because the new troop that ended up coming in to the game as of the Fell Roost. So if we go over to troops over here, we can see the 4 that ended up coming in. If we go over to the Fell Roost Kingdom faction, so if we go over here, the biggest issue that's going to be with ever doing Explore here from now on is it basically has its own version of Dragon Soul. It has a 50% chance to spawn a Fell Dragon egg whenever it ends up dying. So this is going to be very annoying to ever do this as an Explore going forward, and it's probably one that you want to avoid, similar to that of Dragon's Claw and similar to that of Groshnok, simply because they have troops that have such a high revive chance that you basically never want to explore there anymore if you can help it. So do be wary of that. As far as the overall troops, nothing really too good here. We have basically a little bit of poke damage that has some boost ratio, which doesn't really do much. We have the Fell Dragon Egg, which is basically the main thing that helps you actually do pure faction for this place. However, aside from that, it's not really going to be used for much. It just gets to summon a random thing from the faction. Nocturnia is the main damage source here. This is probably the most applicable one outside of the actual faction itself. However, it's still bad enough that it's not really going to be used much. It's just some true damage with some heavy splash attached to it, meaning you'll be do 75% of that true damage to the 2 adjacent enemies. Also gets to burn disease, so it does have some of the highest amount of disease in the game at 3 100% chances, assuming they don't have immune. And also gets a chance for some summon afterwards, and still having a little bit of that Dragon Soul effect. It's not as good as what Dragon Soul has for its on death, since Baby Dragon can become any dragon in the game, including back to Dragon Soul. However, this can theoretically still go back to Nocturnia if you end up getting the egg, and then the egg goes to Nocturnia, and then you can kind of go a little bit back and forth that way, but overall it's rather average and not really going to be seen much use. And other than that, the cheapest Bone Storm in the game has been added. This is a rare, and you'll be able to go get a small explosion with some Bone Storm. I don't really feel like this will be that applicable compared to just using Skeleton or something in early game. However, this is technically the cheapest Bone Storm in the game from what I'm aware of, being attached to a rare on its ability, so pretty easy to end up getting it out. Overall, pretty average as far as the troops that you have to be able to go and use for the faction. As far as the delve layout itself, delve layout is rather straightforward. You pretty much just take multiplier order. Only treasure room is this one right over here. This is a guaranteed treasure room every single time, the one pretty much all the way at the top of the mountain. And for the most part, I just ended up doing these 3, then that one, and then these 3. Mostly because the treasure room right there is a little bit blocking the other high multiplier room, and generally speaking, this will be the highest multiplier order. You might have to check what this room is sometimes compared to this 3, since they can both be around the same amount of points. But aside from that, statistically, doing these 2, then that, and that will be about the same. So I just ended up doing that every single time and ended up working out pretty conveniently. And of course, just try taking the treasure room last, unless it's a Cedric and you want to use a gold related team. It is a 4 room to be able to get to the end, so you do have to be a little bit wary when you're doing that, as it's going to be slightly more rooms than what the minimum could be, in which doing a rush down method is only going to be 3. We will go take this battle here. Just with one of the teams. So right here is one of the methods that you can end up doing. We have a yellow-purple restriction as far as this delve is concerned. This means you'll have a lot of access to various skull spam, but you'll also have access to a lot of mana accumulation. You have Thrall, which is a lot of mana. You have Leprechaun, which does a lot of mana. In this particular instance, we're going to be utilizing that to pretty much get everything rolling here. So right here, we do have a lot of immunes to devour on the opposing team. There aren't too many curses to be using under this color restriction. However, one that does exist is, oddly enough, off the Bladed Lands hero class. So if you get 250 wins on the Diabolus, you end up getting this Fiend fire weapon, and this ends up having a 4x curse on its cast, which ends up working out very, very well. As you can see, currently we are up against 3 things that all have immune to Devour in some way, shape, or form. He has Devour right there. This one has Impervious. And this one has immune to Devour. So one easy way to bypass that is, boom, we go curse all 3 of them off the weapon that actually comes from the hero class related to this faction in a way. And yeah, we're pretty much just good to go. And you just keep devouring them over and over. He did get uncursed there, but alternatively we could take a skull off of a very huge Irongut to kill it out, or just kill it out that way. Let's see, can we get a curse on it? No. So I'm just going to go for a board clear with Thrall. Hope we get a skull. Otherwise, we could try casting on him. Still trying to want to, let's see. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get the curse down, just devour him. I think that'll be our best way at this point, rather than trying for a skull. And there we go. And as you can see, it's generally going to get enough attack to just keep instantly killing out everything. Once you get that first devour, you're pretty much good to go. As far as some other teams that you can be using that are cheaper, we have ourselves this one right over here. This is what I ran for the earlier battles. It uses Thrall, Phoenicia, Doomed Blade, and Leprechaun. Ends up killing out the earlier area very, very well. With potion effects, I was actually able to do this till about 200 or so. Without potions and with slightly lower stats, it should be able to last pretty conveniently to about 100 or so, depending on how much upgrade you have on the kingdom itself. Other than that, for the next one here, probably one of the cheapest teams you could possibly run. Triple Finesse into Essence of Evil. Also, if you have Nimbus Bow, it is better to use Nimbus Bow here, particularly towards the later battles. But Essence of Evil is a lot cheaper and easier to obtain, because all you have to do is get 250 wins off a Plague Lord hero class. Plague Lord hero class is obtained from the Darkstone Kingdom, so if you get 250 wins on Plague Lord, you'll get that weapon. And Finesse you get out of guild keys. You probably already have 3 of them. If you don't, you can actually get it within 1 week, within a few days, just by opening a bunch of guild keys, regardless of what your seals are even at, as far as total for your guild. So definitely very easy to go and get these up and have Triple Finesse. One of the main reasons why Triple Finesse is actually pretty good for this delve is the first and final battle are almost purely entirely yellow. The first battle is 4 times yellow, and the final battle is 3 times yellow, making it very effective to throw down Finesse, as Finesse has double damage against yellows on a hit, as well as double damage on skull if you have it traded. So ends up gaining a lot of benefit against yellow, which is pretty much makes up half the delve, if not more, depending on what the in-between battles are. So you can end up getting a lot of value out of using Finesse, and it's super cheap to do so. And then you basically just use the Essence of Evil as a disable, and if you have Nimbus Bow, you definitely want to switch to Nimbus Bow by the later battles, because if you have this fully traded, you'll be able to get 12 to all stats to your entire team per turn, and this ends up stacking up to be a lot of stats, and Nimbus Bow will be able to land those extra turns a lot more effectively than something like an Essence of Evil will be able to do so. And of course, be using Stormcaller hero class, as this team requires Perpetual Yellow Storm to be able to work. It is required to use Stormcaller specifically with it. For the later battles, as I showed earlier, we have ourselves the High King Irongut team. A little bit of a weird format for him, since we don't have as many options to use this time around, but it still works pretty well, as you can see with the battle that we just ended up doing earlier. But yeah, you basically just want to get the Thrall going as quickly as possible off a Leprechaun, get his mana, just keep going into infinite mana, and just keep throwing down High King Ironguts. If you need Curse, you just throw down the weapon, otherwise you just keep High King Irongutting the entire time, and take skulls whenever you can. And as far as Pure Faction, you can literally just go 4 times Nocturnia. Your team's going to be shifting as you go through anyways, so it almost doesn't even matter what you start with, as long as you have a lot of Nocturnia starting in your team. So I just figured go 4 times, which is why I ended up ultimately doing it with on the first try. And basically, you keep getting eggs from your cast. You have a 20% per cast and a 50% on death that you would end up getting an egg. That egg then can give you anything from Fell Roost as far as the troop drop, and then kind of keep cycling over and over again. You can use this to your advantage, because the enemies, whenever they cast, the way that summoning works in this game is whenever you do it off of a cast, it'll come in based on whatever its magic is. So you will be able to utilize this because the enemy's magic will be much lower. It'll be in about the hundreds or so. However, this is much lower than 500 when you're doing level 500 pure faction. So you can basically get the eggs to summon very weak things. These very weak things will have a low attack value that won't really be as intimidating, and then you can basically make sure not to kill it, let them hit you with their really low attack, and then you'll be able to go and keep hitting with targeted true damage at the more threatening things like the Nocturnia and the egg and stuff like that off the opposing team. So it ends up working out very, very well just by utilizing that fact. And if they happen to resummon again, it'll be even lower and lower, because of course if the enemy, let's say, had this amount of magic at 36, it would simply summon a level 36 egg, so it'd be much, much lower than what you'd normally have to deal with. And of course, your summons always are capped at 20, so do be mindful of that. You would also want to make sure you upgrade the egg prior, even if you're just using pure Nocturnias, as well as everything in the faction, because your summons will be restricted based on the highest rarity that you got them up to. So if you only got something up to rare rarity, or up to ultra rare rarity, it'll be capped at that when you end up getting the summon. So if you can get them all to mythic, it would definitely be beneficial to do so, not just for kingdom upgrading purposes, but they will also be coming in at that summon level at all the way at level 20 mythic. Otherwise, they will be at a lower level and a lower rarity when you summon them in. So do be wary of that when you're doing this build, as you're going to be summoning through all 4 of the troops at some point within the battles. Generally, you do want to kill the one that just does the little boost ratio based on disease and burn. However, the main ones you want to be finding are, of course, the Nocturnia, the egg, and the one that has the explosion, with the main 2 mon to be Nocturnia into egg and kind of going back and forth, though of course you can't really control that. However, you can deliberately let like your first slot die if it's something you don't want, and then try using the egg to either get an egg there or a Nocturnia there, ideally a Nocturnia, and yeah, pretty much works like that, and rather straightforward. Probably one of the easier pure factions to do. Definitely not the absolute easiest, but definitely really high up there as far as being able to do it without any kind of potion effects, and just using metals with like a 20% mana start and a little bit extra stats ends up going a long way with it. But anyways, guys, that is pretty much everything to mention with Fell Roost. It's definitely a rather average faction. Doesn't really bring too much other than being able to go and upgrade Blade of Lands a little bit more than it would normally be able to. But anyways, guys, if you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will catch you guys later. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye, everyone!